Child sex trafficking is a community problem caused by many factors. Recovering the girls from pimps and freeing them from their exploitive situation is only the first step of a long journey of healing and restoration. These survivors need a place of hope and healing, a place the girls can call home. What comes after they've been rescued from a motel room? Thankfully, the Central Texas community responded, and together we built the Refuge Ranch, a place where they can rebuild their lives and get constant and consistent love and therapeutic care in relationships with people they trust. The Refuge for DMST, which stands for Domestic Minor Sex Trafficking, has developed the Refuge Ranch, which provides trauma-informed, holistic, 24/7 care for child sex trafficking survivors. Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm Brooke Crowder, founder and CEO of the Refuge for DMST. Nestled among the Bastrop County pine trees, a 23-building labor of love has risen up from the clay and the sand to meet a dire need. Today, we'd like to take you on a first-time ever open house tour of the Refuge Ranch, the largest long-term live-in rehabilitation community for child survivors of sex trafficking in the United States. The 50-acre Refuge Ranch opened in August of 2018. Since then, many girls have come here for rest and restoration. Outside of the residents and those directly involved in their care, very few people have seen the everyday hope and healing taking place on the ranch for the girls' safety and confidentiality. Come walk the grounds with me and witness our mission in action, as seen through the eyes of Kiara, a representative child survivor of sex trafficking, from her first day to her transition back out into the world. When Kiara arrives at the Refuge Ranch, this is the first thing she sees, the Equine Therapy Center. It's her first day, and it may be overwhelming. There's so much to take in, especially if she's like many of the girls and come here from a crowded foster home or a juvenile justice center. The goal of the Refuge is to provide the very best available care for survivors of child sex trafficking. The hope is that in the near future, the Refuge model will be known as the Mayo Clinic of Domestic Minor Sex Trafficking. We're going to take a look at many of the therapeutic programs today, but let's start at the beginning with why there's a need for the Refuge. See this statistic? This stat should break your heart. All of the stats should challenge your humanity, and your heart needs to break for these children. But let me explain the significance of this one. The Dallas Morning News interpreted this UT study this way: vulnerable people need healthy, trusting, and supportive relationships, or they'll find a false relationship and people whose goal is to exploit them. If the victims do not receive the long-term care necessary to break their trauma bond with their pimp and heal, the risk of recidivism back into the life is high. The cost upon just the state of Texas, according to another UT study, is an estimated $6.5 billion spent on the lifetime costs of providing care to victims and survivors of minor and youth sex trafficking in Texas, including costs related to law enforcement, prosecution, and social services. The Refuge for DMST believes there is no rescue without restoration. A young girl living at the Refuge Ranch won't sleep in barracks bunk beds, and she has her own bedroom and her own bathroom. She won't eat from a cafeteria tray or have limited recreation time in a yard surrounded by razor wire. Instead, she has opportunity to spend a quiet afternoon on a porch swing, playing games with her friends, and for some girls, this is a first. With just 48 beds, the Refuge Ranch is the largest long-term live-in rehabilitation facility for child survivors of sex trafficking in the United States. Our first stop on the tour will be at the Haven, where Kiara will stay as she transitions into her new life and where her immediate emotional and physical needs will be assessed. This will be a very unnerving time for her because she's being asked to stay at a place that is unfamiliar and new. Beginning to trust and being vulnerable about the trauma she has been through is a critical part of Kiara's recovery. In her own room in the Haven, when she unpacks the few things she's brought with her, she's only just beginning to unpack some heavy baggage that is way too much for anyone to bear, much less a child. To address the complex trauma, PTSD, anxiety, and depression that is unique to children who've endured the unimaginable, the Refuge created the trademarked Circle of Care. Here to share more about the 7 components of the Circle of Care is Refuge board member John Clark.
The 7 components of the Refuge Circle of Care include medical and physical, psychological, spiritual, educational, social relational, job skills, independent living, and lastly, community connections. After her first 30 days of settling into a new and safe life at the Refuge Ranch, the new girl and the Refuge therapeutic team and her advocates gather to create an individualized Circle of Care treatment plan to sensitively surround her with the services that she needs for rest and restoration. Her treatment team is sometimes comprised of up to 20 people, all of them invested in her well-being. Her team includes the Refuge staff, which is her case manager, therapist, psychologist, and house mom. And also at the table are her advocates, which can include her CPS worker, court ad litem, CASA advocate, probation officer, and her biological or foster parent. Together, with buy-in from the child herself, the team maps out 10 benchmarks with each component of the Refuge Circle of Care. Each benchmark in her master treatment plan is tracked, graphed, reviewed, and revised every 90 days by the child herself and all of the team members.
Kiara's long journey back to trusting people again begins the first day in the Haven. It will take her maybe 2 or 3 months of living at the Refuge Ranch before she finally feels safe enough to let her guard down. Almost every girl who comes to the Refuge Ranch does not self-identify as a sex trafficking survivor, much less a victim. Many have no healthy frame of reference because they may have been sold by their boyfriends or their biological or foster parents. Their distrust extends to us as well. Even though everything is beautiful and peaceful at the ranch, they have been betrayed so often, they're pretty certain that there's a catch. For most of her young life, she's been in survival mode, a constant state of flight, fight, or freeze. It's hard for her to believe that the refuge is real. Over and over, we hear from the girls, "I've never been to a place like this." Next stop for Kiara is at the Creative Arts Center, which is where she will start each morning receiving a unique, strength-based, and self-paced education from an on-site University of Texas charter school. To further explain the educational component of the Refuge Circle of Care, here is John Clark.
The Refuge Ranch is honored to be chosen as a site for the University of Texas Charter School. With this addition to the Refuge Circle of Care, the girls are ensured the opportunity to re-engage their education, increasing their chances of future success. By being a part of the UT charter school system, the girls at the Refuge are taught by highly skilled faculty, staff, and administrators, all required to hold special education certifications in addition to their subject area certification and training in trauma-informed care specific to child survivors of sex trafficking. With this on-site expertise, the girls have improved on average 1.5 grade levels, and 4 of the girls have earned their high school diplomas. Once they graduate, the girls have the opportunity to enroll in online classes at Austin Community College.
Since John taped that video, we've had several more girls earn their diplomas, and more will graduate soon. Besides housing the UT Charter School, we've made the Creative Arts Center a fun place to be for Kiara. Here, she will have the opportunity to heal through participating in music and art classes. Music aids in the restoration of expressive language and stimulates areas deep within her brain where her emotions are processed, providing a medium to unpack a lot of pain. Multi-dimensional art activities, such as drawing, painting, and ceramics, will also allow Kiara to externalize some hard emotions that she's having trouble expressing. After 30 days in the Haven, Kiara will move into the cottage that is a best fit for her, with housemates she is already connected to during her time adjusting. In the cottage, she will live with 2 to 3 other survivors and a dedicated, around-the-clock team of caretakers who will all combine to form a close-knit family and support structure. Here, at her own bedroom, Kiara will pick her own bedding, linens, and decorations. This was an intentional design choice. This gives each girl a sense of security and privacy, a place she can go when she needs to regulate and take time for herself. You see, often to control girls like Kiara, pimps take away every aspect of a girl's sense of identity, such as cell phones and other valued possessions. They manipulate when the girls can eat, shower, and sleep. For the girls, having their own space is a first and a big step toward recovering, giving them a sense of individuality throughout their stay at the Refuge Ranch. Here in the studio, a common living room for the girls, Kiara can easily be occupied for hours playing games, or in the commercial kitchen, which is a great space for cooking as a community, or for gourmet classes taught by volunteer experts. The studio also features a dedicated AV room, which has comfy beanbag chairs and a large DVD collection, where Kiara and her new friends spend time watching movies together. To help restore the mind-body connection, there's also a beautiful yoga room for group and individual yoga classes. Your donations helped us build the Refuge Ranch debt-free. Now with the pandemic that affects everyone's health and finances, how will we continue to provide the best care available to an extremely vulnerable group of 11 to 19-year-old girls? We don't have the option to close our doors or take a break during a pandemic. Where else would these girls go? We invite you to partner with us financially and help us continue providing the holistic care these girls need to recover. Here at the Counseling Center, Kiara will start to explore her story through a variety of evidence-based therapies, such as sand tray and play therapy. If she is to make the transition from being a victim to flourishing as a survivor, the psychological component is a vital part of the Refuge Circle of Care. Here again is John Clark with a rundown of some of the therapeutic services your kind donations make possible.
On-site psychiatric services are provided in collaboration with Dell Medical School's Department of Psychiatry. Services include diagnostic assessment, psychiatric treatment planning, psychopharmacological and evidence-based psychotherapeutic treatment. Additionally, our entire staff is trained in TBRI, which is trust-based relational intervention, and receives other ongoing professional training specific to the care of child survivors of sex trafficking. Each girl living at the Refuge Ranch attends weekly one-on-one therapy sessions with in-house licensed therapists specializing in developmentally adaptive cognitive processing therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, sand tray therapy, experiential therapy, and more, all based on their individual needs. They also have the opportunity to participate in group therapy with other survivors. To round out the holistic approach, we provide equine therapy and art therapy, farming and agricultural activities, gardening, yoga, dance, self-defense, music, and more, plus daily enrichment options for self-regulation and body awareness.
In addition to the therapies John mentioned, we have recently collaborated with Dell Medical School's Department of Psychiatry to help provide the very best care available. Here is Dr. Charles Nemiroff, Chairman of the Psychiatric Department, to explain our partnership with Dell Med.
The Refuge is an extraordinary resource. It's really a one-of-a-kind facility for treating those girls who've experienced human trafficking, and it's unique in the United States for its current level of care. These survivors are an extremely fragile and vulnerable group of young girls who've made significant progress in getting to the Refuge and who have significant health needs stemming from their awful trauma. It is extraordinarily important that we begin to understand how we could help these girls heal. And for that reason, we're planning on conducting research with appropriate safeguards in place to protect these young women during their recovery. At the current time, we have 2 senior Department of Psychiatry faculty members who are overseeing all of the girls' psychopharmacological and evidence-based psychotherapeutic treatment.
This research project is a first-of-its-kind study. Until the Refuge Ranch opened, it was difficult to impossible for medical researchers to gather data to prove the efficacies of various therapeutic treatments for child survivors. Why? Trafficked children frequently run away as a self-defense mechanism, and it's hard to turn off, even when they feel safe. The Refuge Ranch is a place where the girls can finally turn off that hyper-aware state of fight, flight, or freeze and be a kid again. In this safe environment, psychiatrists can help us to assess what treatments work best. This groundbreaking data could also help other facilities work with their state legislatures to inform policy decisions. With empirical data in front of them, it should be easier for states to help the most vulnerable children in the child welfare system. We also hope this data will exponentially help provide more and better treatment for child survivors all across the country. Now I would like to show you the work taking place out in the Equine Therapy Center. Through the direct interaction between a horse and an instructor or licensed therapist, Kiara can address her physical and emotional needs. Equine therapy helps teach mindfulness and self-regulation, allowing Kiara to learn how to regulate herself and notice triggers before they become too overwhelming. And now here to share more on this with us is one of our equine therapists.
When the girls get to work with the horses, they get to feel that someone is actually listening to them and not judging them or shaming them for anything that the past has brought them here, for them to be able to feel that they are loved. The horses will love unconditionally. No matter what environment that they're in, no matter the mood that they're in, the horses are going to love the girls regardless.
We're so happy that the girls have this covered, state-of-the-art facility where Kiara and the other girls can work with the specially trained therapy horses. Thanks to a nationwide, all-volunteer army brought in by the nonprofit 8 Days of Hope, the Equine Therapy Center construction was completed in December of 2019 in just 14 days. You and this community have made all of this possible, and your financial support has made the level of care available for all the girls, and we are grateful. Now we are at the on-site medical clinic because Kiara has a physical complaint. Kiara has had 2 to 3 months of peace and safety, so she's finally beginning to feel something besides constant threat. Through the new and healthy relationship she's built with her house mom, the girls in her cottage, her teachers, her therapist, and her favorite horse, Newton, she gets the chance to be a kid again. Now that she's no longer in survival mode, she can suddenly feel all the symptoms she had to ignore back when just surviving through the night was her highest priority. When everything starts to break down after months and years of living on adrenaline and possibly drugs used to numb and control her, she begins to feel every ache and pain, sometimes for the very first time. So today, Kiara heads to our on-site medical clinic for help. To highlight the details of the medical and physical component of the Refuge Circle of Care, here's John Clark.
Every girl who has experienced the complex trauma of commercial sexual exploitation needs ongoing medical care. In partnership with many multidisciplinary medical groups and specially trained in-house medical staff, all girls receive compassionate medical care for proper physical healing. Medical services are provided by a supervising physician and a nurse practitioner who is on site once a week. Services are augmented by regular dentist visits and a gynecologist who comes out once a month. We also plan to have a dietitian on our staff in the near future. Through the benchmarking process, the Refuge Circle of Care treatment plan helps each girl increasingly gain and demonstrate an awareness of her body and health with empowerment and self-advocacy for her physical health and medical care. In addition to helping make their bodies healthier, we also want to help to make them physically stronger. That's why we have an on-site workout room, organized outdoor sports, and trails for walking or jogging and cycling available for all the girls to help promote healthy living and stress release as they heal.
This is the Metamorphosis Gym. The girls chose the name Metamorphosis because it recognized that there are different stages in life and all of them are important. Let's go inside and check out their gym. Here's the weight room, the elliptical machines, stationary bicycle, and steppers. All of the equipment was donated by folks like yourself. The Refuge Circle of Care was developed in late 2013 after I had traveled around the country and done extensive research to see what kind of services were currently being offered. I wanted to see what was working and what wasn't working. I consulted with adult survivors to understand what would have helped them heal, and I came away from that tour determined to create a place of rest and restoration where I would want to send my own daughter. So far on our open house tour, we've seen the cottages, the Creative Arts Center, the studio, the clinic, and the Equine Therapy Center. Now let's take a look inside the chapel, another community hub at the Refuge Ranch. When the chapel was being built, supporters wrote their prayers and hopes for the girls on the supporting 2x4 beams before the walls were sheetrocked over. It's a tradition that got started as the first cottage was being built, and all of the buildings have scripture, prayer, and other words of encouragement handwritten inside their walls. We are a faith-based organization, and we have a foundational belief that is written both on 2x4s and in our hearts. Before we step inside the chapel, here's John Clark to talk about the spiritual component of the Refuge Circle of Care.
Our staff and volunteers share a common faith as followers of Christ. Our spiritual guidance with the girls is based on love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. While we are a faith-based organization, we do not force our beliefs on any of the girls. We always operate in an accepting, loving, non-judgmental manner. We have a non-discrimination policy and we provide care to all the girls, regardless of their race or religion. Guided by our staff pastors, a husband and wife team, and church partners, services are held regularly in the chapel, and each child is encouraged to identify her own cultural and spiritual beliefs, morals, and values through fellowship, scrapbooks, and/or personal meditation. Through the benchmarks, the girls work to identify and practice healthy acts of love, kindness, and goodness to those around them.
The chapel is the cornerstone of the grounds at the Refuge Ranch, a place where Kiara will have the opportunity to explore restoration with God and be introduced to faith at her own pace. Spiritual abuse is a very common control tactic used by pimps to keep girls submissive. At the Refuge Ranch, we provide an opportunity to learn about God by choice and not by control or submission. At the Refuge Ranch, church and Bible study are offered but never required. Pre-COVID-19, the chapel served as a community space for events such as high school graduations, group dinners, talent shows, an Uno World Championship, and a formal Valentine's Day dinner with etiquette lessons taught between courses. The chapel was also a gathering place for town halls, where the girls got to vote on activities to incorporate into their weekly schedule. Independent living and job skills is an important component of the Refuge Circle of Care. For more details, here is John Clark.
We understand that the girls are eager to live on their own one day, and they will need a wide variety of skills to be successful. While in treatment, there are many opportunities to learn job and independent living skills through educational and/or professional experiences, including cooking, budgeting, healthy work ethics, money management, interviewing, resume writing, teamwork, leadership, and even just general professionalism. Our goal is to introduce and incorporate just normal teenage activities into our program based on each girl's interests. From her first quarter master treatment plan review to her fourth, a child can go from outlining her hopes and dreams for her future to learning money management, professional dress and interviewing skills, and if her talents and interests have an entrepreneurial bent, she can develop a micro business where she can learn about budgeting, inventory, customer relationships, and even marketing.
As Kiara enters the final stage of her restorative journey at the Refuge Ranch, she may move out of her cottage and into the Taylor home, where I am sitting right now. This home exists to ease her transition back into the community. With a floor plan that mimics more of an apartment-style dwelling with 24/7 support from staff members, but no house mom, girls begin to live more independently, cooking their own meals and working on plans for when they leave the Refuge Ranch. Our hope for Kiara is that we've collectively made an impact upon her life and that the bonds she's made here at the Refuge Ranch will change her life's trajectory forever. The Refuge is in the hope business, and we currently live in a world where there's a high demand for hope. A way too high percentage of girls who have been trafficked have no one to turn to for hope, except for the Refuge. At the edge of the Refuge Ranch property, there is a fire pit encircled by tree stumps. This space has been reserved for a special celebration when the girls graduate from the Refuge. During the ceremony, every girl gets the opportunity to speak encouragement and love over Kiara before she transitions back into the world. At our first campfire ceremony, a girl threw a memento of her past into the fire. This symbolic act marked the growth she experienced while living at the ranch, and it set an empowering example for every girl present. This gesture is now part of many girls' last night at the ranch. Here's John with the final component in the Refuge Circle of Care.
For the girls in our care, rebuilding relationships, the connections with family, relatives, and the community at large, is a critical component in the Refuge Circle of Care. They were essentially sold by their boyfriends and/or parents, whether biological or foster. And the complex trauma that is unique to child sex trafficking survivors is made that complex by the repeated betrayal of their most trusted relationships. If appropriate and healthy for the girls, our goal is to successfully reunite her with her immediate family and relatives in some way. We encourage each girl to explore her own family of origin and traditions and current family dynamics through individual and group therapy and phone calls and visits with family members. We want the girls to understand the roles and characteristics of healthy families and establish a healthy support system before they return to the world. Throughout her treatment at the Refuge Ranch, Each girl will be connected to a variety of community resources to lend support both now and when she leaves. These sources include things like mentors and community groups like police departments and advocates and that sort of thing, and also other survivors. Through relationships, they have been exploited, and through relationships, they can be restored.
Now that we are all living among the havoc wreaked by the COVID-19 virus, what will happen to our most vulnerable children? There is a danger that these children will be forgotten. Please donate now. A lot of the girls in our care depend upon you to be their champion. This place of rest and restoration was built because you cared. We hope this place of hope and healing continues to operate during very chaotic times because your powers of empathy never dimmed. Thanks to your generosity, the Refuge can continue providing all the therapeutic programs you've seen today. Surrounded by her house mom and her cottage mates, who have become new sisters during her stay at the Refuge Ranch, Kiara receives her final goodbyes. Not seen are the connection specialists, her case manager, therapist, and psychologist, and all the off-site members of her treatment team, which is sometimes comprised of up to 20 people, who have all helped Kiara become a survivor. They are not at the ranch that day when Kiara leaves to begin the next part of her journey, but her CPS worker, court ad litem, CASA advocate, and more than likely a probation officer are there in spirit to celebrate her transition back into the world. Her healing journey doesn't end here. Healing from complex trauma isn't a straight line. Hopefully, with the work of this team of caring adults behind her, she has a fighting chance of having more good days than bad. Though she is leaving the ranch, she will be a part of the Refuge family forever. I hope you enjoyed our first ever open house tour of the Refuge Ranch. I want to thank everyone for their generous support while we walked through all the components of the Refuge Circle of Care. On behalf of all the girls at the Refuge Ranch that have come before, who are here now, and those that will come in the future, we thank you. None of this would be possible without your support.